Today on Retro Car Guy 530, I'm going to show you how to upgrade the firmware in your Canon EOS M50 from version 1.0.3 to 1.1.0, released in October 2020. Back in 2018, I purchased my Canon EOS M50 as part of a kit bundle, and I've used it extensively on my YouTube channel ever since then. I've taken it to car shows, using it to photograph cars, take videos. I've used it as a live stream device as well, and it's a main workhorse here on my channel, so I want to make sure that I have the latest firmware installed. Back in November 2019, I installed version 1.0.3, and I've had no technical problems with that particular firmware, but I noticed that when I was on the Canon website this morning, that version 1.1.0 was out, and that fixed some problems with Android device compatibility for near-field communications and some focusing issues as well. So I decided to go ahead and go through the process of upgrading the camera firmware to 1.1.0. There are two ways to do this. One is to simply copy the files over to a camera formatted SD card and then installing the card back into the camera and following through the menu steps on the camera. And then the other approach is to get the files copied over. You can use the EOS utility. I'm going to show you the file copy method, but you can look at the PDF file that's in the downloaded zip file for Windows or the DMG file for Mac, and you can take whichever approach that you feel comfortable with on your particular camera. So with that, I'm going to show you the formatting of the card on the camera using the menus and going through that quick and easy step. That will prep the SD card ready to be used, because if you have a brand new SD card, you have to format it to be compatible with the camera. I am using the one that's already in the camera, but I just want to show you those steps. I extract the SD card, mount it on my Windows computer, copy over the two files in a particular order, and then, according to at least the zip file, you have to do it in a particular order, and then you unmount the SD card from your computer gracefully so that it flushes everything out to the SD card, put it back into the camera, and then go through the menus to get the firmware upgraded. So with that, let's get into it. The first step we need to accomplish is getting the SD card ready to be used for the upgrade process. So you need to have a formatted SD card that was formatted by the camera. So I'm going to turn the camera on. And then I'm going to go into the wrench menu and then the format. Press set, and then I'm going to go over to OK and press the set button again. That will format the card, so exit the menu, turn the camera off. Once that's settled down, I'm pulling the power out. And we're going to remove the SD card by moving this cover here, pressing on it to click and release, and then we'll take that over to be used on the computer. This is the USA Canon support website. I will put a link in the description section to this site. Here's where I, in the driver and software details, list out the issues that have been fixed, and you can scroll through that. As I mentioned before, some NFC communications with Android devices have been fixed and some focusing issues. Click on the read and agree to the terms once you have read them, and then click the download link to download the zip or DMG file for your particular platform. Now here are the contents of that zip file that have been expanded, and we have the update procedure PDF, which has two processes related to updating the firmware. The first one is the SD card, which I will show you on the segment over here where I'm formatting the SD card, which should be familiar to you if you're familiar with the camera, but you can go take a look at that segment and understand how to quickly format the SD card before you begin this process. And they give you an alternative process here as well to connect the camera to the computer, and using the EOS utility to basically copy over the files to the camera. So I'm going to show you the SD card version, since that might be the simplest for many of the owners to do. But if you have the EOS utility, that is documented in this PDF file that was downloaded in the zip file. So that's that update procedure.pdf. Now in here, where it talks about the SD card version of this, you need to first copy the ccf19.dat file and then the .fir file secondly, to the root directory on the SD card that was formatted by the camera. So I'm going to go select this, select copy, and then I'm going to go to drive F where I've mounted the SD card, and then I'm going to select paste, and then I'm going to go back to where I was and then select this .fir file and do the copy, and then go back to drive F where I have the SD card and select paste. So I believe, then remove the SD card from the card reader. Make sure, now this is important with Windows, you need to make sure that you successfully unmount the drive. So in the File Explorer, you can go and right click here, and right at the very bottom here we have eject. So assuming nothing else is using the drive on the computer, it should allow it to be ejected, and that File Explorer will actually close out in that particular case. So I'm going to remove the drive from the USB connection and the reader, and then we're going to insert the SD card with the firmware into the camera, and then we're going to turn it on and press the menu and follow these next steps over at the camera. So let's switch over to that view. We've now copied over the files to the SD card. So let's reinsert the SD card back into the camera. Close the lid. I'm going to reattach the power from my AC to DC power adapter. And then we're going to switch the mode selection to P per the instructions. And then we're ready to go. Now we're going to power up the camera, and we're going to choose the option to update the firmware. We are on mode P on the top, just the menu, and then screen 5 of the wrench menu. You can see that it shows the current firmware, so we're going to scroll down to that, and we're going to press the set button. So we're going to now click on camera, current firmware, update firmware. We're going to scroll over to the right and press the set button on the OK selection. Now it should be taking the files off the SD card that we copied over and upgrading the firmware on the camera. And the current firmware that's installed 1.0.3, and we're going to the 1.10, and so we're gonna press the set button on that one. So we're gonna go from 1.0.3 to 1.1.0. Then we'll scroll over here, press set, and now it's actually beginning the actual firmware update of the camera. So in theory, we are now at the higher firmware version, so let's go into the menu. And it does display version 1.1.0. So we have successfully upgraded the firmware to that version. Pretty simple, straightforward. So that is the first approach with the SD card, and of course you're supposed to be able to do something similar with the EOS utility. But I thought I'd demonstrate this process to make it a little bit simpler for everyone that wanted to do this instead of doing it over a USB connection to the camera using the EOS utility. Well, there you go. You now know how to upgrade the firmware on your Canon EOS M50. And I imagine the process is very similar for the Mark II, but this particular video is talking about the files specific to version 1.1.0 for the original Canon EOS M50. So if you found something informational and entertaining in this video, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you hit that bell notification to be notified when I upload new videos to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. 3, 2, 1. We're now going to install the SD card once again back into the camera. Let's open the memory card slot and insert, nope. In this episode of Retro Car, in this 3, 2, 1. In this episode of Retro Archive, so hopefully you can see that that's 3, 2, 1.